Welcome to Laid Back Law with your favorite lawyers from around the interwebs, discussing the most pressing of topics every Friday at noon Eastern Time.
All right, we are here, and it's almost miraculous when the show runs 2 weeks in a row. I think we're up to 3 weeks in a row. I'm so glad that I've been able to put together crews, and we can hang out and do this thing on Fridays. Just an awesome time. We've got Phil Holloway back, Viva Frei, and Runkle of the Bailey, which is awesome. Now, Phil is starting around because he's got this new gig. He's a part of the whole Megyn Kelly network. And one thing cool about the Megyn Kelly network and what he's doing is what MK True Crime, law, they kind of go together. At least you hope they do. So you want to tell us?
Yeah. So thanks, Eric. Yeah. So, Megyn Kelly, she's obviously a big name in streaming and podcasting. And she has always had an interest in true crime. In fact, she would do, and I guess still does from time to time, she calls them Kelly's Court segments. Viva and I have been in there together a bunch of times. She really loves legal stuff and true crime. And
she is a lawyer.
Yeah, she is a lawyer by training. And so she kind of scratches that lawyer itch by doing this, right? And so it's not all politics with her all the time. And so under her new media company, which is MK Media, she's slowly rolling out some streaming or video pods. And so this is the next, I guess, evolution of that project. And so she's created, let's just call it a channel, but it's more than that. It's MK True Crime. And we do bi-weekly shows. The second one dropped actually at 10 a.m. Eastern this morning. And I was the host of that one, but there's like 7 or 8 of us that are the core rotating contributors and co-hosts. So today was episode 2. And so I was joined by, a couple of other of my colleagues, and we talk about the news of the day. And so it's something very excited. It's a lot of fun.
Well, let's start with that segment you were talking about, because the Devil's Den case might be something worthwhile to discuss on here. So we've got little brief footage of Phil on his new show, but he was sharing footage of the guy getting arrested, which is very interesting.
We've got some very interesting video of his actual arrest. This guy was arrested in a barber shop in the middle of a haircut. Let's go ahead and take a look at that video, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
That's cold.
Well, hey, it could be mafia style. How many gangsters have been
so there
shot
you have
dead?
it. He's being handcuffed.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Half of his, it's like he had half of his haircut like really short, and the other half was all floppy when the cops
that's cold.
Don't you hate it when that happens? Oh my God. Well, it didn't help his mugshot at all. I mean, when I saw that mugshot, I was like, boo. No surprise on that one. You know how sometimes when they arrest somebody and you look at the mugshot, you're yeah, life hasn't been good to that person.
That barber who was cutting his hair, she's a true crime junkie herself, and she's watched a bunch of true crime shows, documentaries, and streaming stuff. And she had been watching the local news, right? And they've had these, all over the local news. If you have any information, call it. There's a sketch and all this. So this guy walks in, and he's a little bit creepy. She says his eyes freaked her out. It's always in the eyes. And so she was thinking to herself, I wonder if this is the guy. And so she's already she's cutting his hair, and she's taking the clippings of his hair that fall on the floor, and she's
collecting evidence
to the side because she's going to bag it and tag it for the cops. So,
I love it.
She clearly isn't watching enough true crime.
Yeah, if you see something, say something, or if you see something, sweep something, I guess is what she was going.
But they need the root. They don't need the cuttings. That's
the guy is. I mean, when they show his mugshot,
it's bad. Yeah,
he's almost like Gary Busey, right?
No, Gary Busey just looked drunk. This guy looks like the personification of evil. It's like you look in the eyes, and when people say people exude evil, in as much as you can impute what you impute to a photograph, knowing he is alleged to have killed 2 people.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the problem is it's always post facto.
Yeah.
Except one time. One time we were driving through my neighborhood, and the story's not about Joe. This is before Joe moved to my neighborhood. We were driving through my neighborhood, Joe, in the 90s. And my wife said to me, there was a guy mowing his lawn, one of our neighbors. I don't even think you know the guy. She said, "Who's that? He looks evil." I would later end up representing him in connection with a guilty plea for insurance fraud.
Oh, that's not evil. That's just mean. Evil is like
Wow.
murdering
No.
and assaulting children.
That was just what he got caught with.
All right.
He's a creep.
Well, that's one thing I like about criminals is in general, they just don't believe in following the law. So a lot of times they're nabbed on low-level things or non-relevant things just because their nature kind of gets them like, wasn't it helpful in New York when they started popping the people who were jumping the turnstiles or whatever? They were like, okay, line them up. Hey, well, you look at this. We got 3 warrants for these guys, right? This one.
Yeah,
Boop, off the street.
That was 1,000,000 years ago, Eric.
I know. I'm aging myself. It's still
but I think evil is not always that noise. It's making.
Wow, we got a psycho keyboard, dude. Joe.
It's Joe. I think is it Joe? Joe, mute yourself.
I think I got it. I don't know why we always background
immediately
noise.
assume it's Joe.
I had to put a towel underneath mine.
No. I think it's not always ex post facto. I think sometimes you can look at someone and know that they are genuinely evil. They radiate their evil pheromones. And
Who's an example of that in public life who you could just
so this is not my anecdote, but it's from Patrick Bet David's podcast when they had Anthony Weiner on, and they said that guy came in and I know Vinny well, I know everybody that they said he exuded evil. Like you looked at him and it's like it was perversion. You could feel it emanating from his body.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
And I thought they had a fun, jovial conversation.
Oh no, that was a fun one.
No, I remember it was actually an interesting one. I didn't watch it, I listened to it. But all right, so Phil, tell us what in the heck is going on with the Devil's Den other than bad timing on haircuts.
All right, so I saved my run of show from yesterday just for this purpose. So, all right, so Arkansas State Police, they arrested Andrew McGann on Wednesday, July 30th. He was charged with 2 counts of capital murder in connection with the deaths of murders of Clinton and Kristen Brink, who were found dead on a walking trail in Devil's Den State Park, West Fork, Arkansas in late July. They have 2 daughters, ages 7 and 9. And by the way, these daughters were out, and I think the daughters might have been the actual intended victims, but this mom, when the dad was being attacked, she took the kids and hurried them off over to where their car was. I'm not sure how far away it was, and got them to relative safety, or so she believed. And then she went back to try to defend her husband.
So they were witnesses. The kids were witnesses.
I think they're going to be witnesses in the case.
Oh my
that's
God.
going to be really unfortunate. It's part of what we talked about in my show that dropped today is like, how do you deal with such young witnesses? And by the time this goes to trial, if it goes to trial, that, they might be, the 9-year-old might be 12 or 13. And then of course, these kids, they weren't physically injured, but they got to live their whole lives, right? Without their parents, and then also with reliving this trauma. But the DA has said he's going to he's going to seek the death penalty, or at least he said he's not taking it off the table. It sounds like he's going to do it. But look, they've got surveillance video that incriminates him. They've got evidence that they've taken from his car and from his home that links him to these crimes. And they said that it's either a confession or an admission, depending on what all he said. But here's the thing, guys. They don't have motive. They don't know what his motive was for doing any of this.
I was going to say, I'm
wondering if we're like headed for another Koberger situation where, the cops can't figure out what the motive is. They don't have to prove motive, but juries always want to know what the motive is. It certainly makes it easier to prosecute.
He had no criminal record.
Nope. Well, no, but look, no criminal record, but if I may, I don't mean to take up all the time. 2 years ago, let me turn to that page. 2 years ago, he was a school teacher now, and he had just moved to Arkansas to take a job. But 2 years ago, he was teaching in Texas.
Did he know the kids by chance, or no?
Well, that's why. Let me get to that. I don't know if he knew them or not. But 2 years ago, he raised alarms amongst elementary school parents because they were saying like he would do things like he would arrange special lunches where certain girls, we're talking about 8, 9-year-old girls, would remain in the classroom. Some parents alleged McGann encouraged girls to sit on his lap.
Your keyboard, man.
Another one said that honestly there were signs that not all was right with Mr. McGann, and he would having these, it's just all this freaky weird grooming type behavior with these little kids. He was never prosecuted. They couldn't quite substantiate it to the point of doing anything, but he got ran off from Texas. So, okay. I don't know what they're going to find on his phone. If they find, child pornography or things like that, I don't know. If they do,
Phil, remember the YouTube game?
That's why I think the girls may have been the target.
It's YouTube. We say CP. Remember?
Yeah.
We never spell out the word because that gets the streams dinged.
How old is he, Phil?
28.
28, I think.
See, I
looked this story up, and the first words I noticed about this story is that he has a transient history, which I thought was funny.
I immediately think schizophrenia, and he might have done acid or something and flipped out. And there was that case in Canada where the guy on a bus, some guy on a Greyhound bus, just spontaneously stabbed the passenger next to him, and then like removed parts of his face, and it was. I mean, the guy was and ate him. It was clear schizophrenia, but or at least drug-induced psychosis.
Well, I was going to say that sounds like some of the bath salt cases that they.
Yeah, this guy actually.
About.
I think the name was McLean of the victim, if I'm not mistaken. And
Tim McLean was the victim. Vince Lee
he goes to the bathroom.
The person's name at the time. Yeah,
goes to the bathroom scene talking to himself, like something like this. If it's not like CP or grooming, or he's part of some trafficking operation, I presume there'd be some more evidence to that. Dude,
I mean,
cytosine is good and breaks off.
The description of the the stuff ahead of time is textbook grooming. Like the whole thing of, you guys are going to be in a special lunch and this kind of thing. That's.
I'm sharing a picture. I'm sharing a picture of him with you, Eric, and he looks kind of special.
Okay. I don't see it yet. So
why don't you see it? I haven't
shared. Oh, you shared your screen. I'm sorry.
I shared my screen.
Okay, I gotta undo mine. And
did we find out who the keyboard from hell was?
Yeah, the guy's a prize. I mean, again, when you look at him here, it's like, okay.
Yeah, but how much of? I mean,
it's like
at
Billy
least 50% of that is the haircut.
He looks. No, if you look at his eyes,
look at the eyes.
Yeah, the eyes
are special and evil.
No, it's the asymmetrical eyes, and then which one like one of them slanting
the
down.
Scowl. Forget the eyes. It's the scowl. If he had a pretty smile, like
I don't know,
Viva or something, he would look just fine.
No,
I don't know, because those eyes follow you, man. Those eyes follow you. You like go left, you go right, they stick with you.
That is a crazy.
The chiseled jawbone on this. I mean, like I don't believe in phrenology, but there might be something there. If I were to like look at this guy's face, I think I'd be able to diagnose him.
Phrenology is head shape, David. It's you're talking about physiognomy, I think.
I'm talking about looking at someone saying that person's a criminal. Stay the hell away from him. Has everybody seen?
That's phrenology.
the movie A History of Violence with
Denzel Washington.
Vitkin Mortensen. What was his name?
Oh yeah. Viggo Mortensen,
whatever. History of Violence. There was that scene when the young kids are passing the two evil people in their car, and they look at them and like they exude evil. That guy exudes evil.
Yeah, I might cross the street. So okay, let's go to a happier case or more fun. Ian, I've been wanting to have you on for a while to talk about this because it's just such a great case with what I feel are self-owns or just idiotic moves by a company. And it's all about lock picking and tin cans.
So
break it down.
Is the sort of item here. It's the company is Proven Industries, and they make locks. That's what they do. Except there's some caveats on that, but the they did a video on Instagram where they were basically saying, like, look at how tough our lock is. They've got an employee who takes a sledgehammer to it. He takes a crowbar. And they're like, this is super tough. And somebody in their comments section says, hey, you know who I'd like to see go after this? Trevor McNally. And they make a comment along the lines of, well, he'd never try to go after our locks because he only goes after the easy ones.
So who is Trevor McNally? Let's get that part.
Well, Trevor McNally is a guy who literally picks locks for a living.
Oh.
And he's on YouTube. He's got like 10 million, I don't know how many. I never actually watched one of his videos, believe it or not. But so like his whole thing is picking locks, and they basically just do a call out of him. And they're like, hey, he only goes after the easy ones. So what does he do? Well, he does a video where he, takes one of these. He's actually watching their video. It's at the beginning, and then it pulls up their call out, the little call out thing that they'd posted. And then it has him pick the lock, or not really pick the lock. He shims it. It's a bypassing technique with a piece of pop can, piece of like, I think it's liquid death, whatever. And so then Proven Industries loses its mind because they're getting all of these people going, well, is your lock actually garbage? And so their response is initially they double down and they say, oh, he's got to be faking it. So he starts putting out additional videos showing that he's not faking it. They say like, oh, he tampered with the lock. So he does a video where he literally pulls the lock out of an Amazon box, opens the package,
it's all fake,
and then shims it.
I saw that one, and he did it in like a minute and a half. From opening the box, cutting the knife, all that can, it was pretty quick.
It's not a super difficult technique once you sort of figure it out. It's so the issue is basically, and I've got the lock, although I don't have a shim sort of cut. So, but the issue is if you look at the lock, there's this little piece there, and you can see how it's spring loaded.
Okay.
So what you do is you basically make like a little hook out of the thin material. You sneak it around and then over and pull that down. And then once that's pulled down, the thing slides right out. So their decision is to sue him. That's where they go, is they're like, people are criticizing us, so we're going to sue this guy. And suing is usually the wrong response to bad press. It is almost always the wrong response to bad press because you're just going to get more bad press.
What are they suing? What grounds are they suing him on? I mean, defamation, false representation,
defamation, and copyright infringement.
Okay, so and let me guess, the perfect defense of defamation is truth, right?
Yeah. So that's, but they're saying basically, oh, he didn't talk about, how long it took him to make the shim or how much experience he had, or that you have to actually, they're like, you have to have seen the lock open in order to figure this out. It's like, well,
Ian, so you're in Alberta, right?
Yeah.
In Quebec, it could be defamation, even if it's true, if it's truth done with the intent to harm.
Yeah, you say it's Quebec, isn't it?
How do I say Quebec?
Well, in the south, it's Quebec.
No, in French, it's Quebec. I will go with the Quebec. In Quebec, it could be defamation and still be true. There was this case of like accurate information about a notary that was put out, but it was done with the intent to harm. So if this guy's like, yeah, look how easily I'm going to take this business down.
But they called him out. They're screwed, I think, because they called him out. They said explicitly he only does easy ones. So therefore, they invoked him, and he's like, "Oh, really?" And so he does. So I mean,
okay. Now, is there any allegation, Ian, that he's falsifying the pics?
They suggested that he faked the video, or that he used fakery in their suit. But they also suggested this in various comments online. And what really got funny, they've now since dismissed this lawsuit, which is a good idea. But they brought an application for an emergency injunction to prevent McNally from continuing to make videos because he kept making videos. And it was very clear that they were using the cross-examination to explore the possibility of a cross complaint. Because they're like, you said that he fakes his videos, right? And they're like, well, yeah. Did you have any evidence that he fakes his videos? No. Did you have any basis to put that? No. Okay, so you were just willing to say that without any... And I'm going, this is them exploring a cross complaint here. Proven could end up walking away owing money to McNally for defamation, not the other way around.
Ron, you're
so
by the way,
they
just the person,
eventually bail hard.
to the person who says speech laws are so dumb, I don't want anyone thinking that either I or Ian approve of the wild speech laws in Canada. I'm just saying that's what courts have said.
But don't you have the same rule in Canada that we do in civilized country that there's an absolute privilege for litigation materials?
Yes. It's not quite absolute, but it's pretty close to. The thing is that Proven Industries, and this is a U.S. case, this is a U.S. suit, they said this stuff inside and outside of court. Like they said this stuff on Instagram and so forth. So
yeah, that's where it gets dicey. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Also,
so like the litigation privilege, they're way outside of it.
Also, even if they were to not be prohibited, that would be excluded. That doesn't mean that the information is now not in the possession of the lockpicker, whereby he could still sue them, saying that these statements you made about these being fake was defamatory. And then if they try and claim that, and they try and change their position, then he could probably introduce that evidence to rebut any sort of refutation that they would make. So he couldn't use the actual deposition, let's say, where they admit that they had no evidence of this and it was a baseless claim. But if in fact they start saying that they had a basis for making this claim, once they get sued, in that case, I think that evidence that would otherwise be excluded could be used to rebut that and to counter that narrative.
Yeah, you said something different under oath elsewhere.
Right.
And they are actually, so Proven Industries dismissed their claim without prejudice, but they're now facing a second lawsuit from a company called Packlock. And the issue is the Proven Industries says, we make all of our stuff in America. And as part of this lawsuit, one of the things they ended up admitting is that the lock cores are, at least a bunch of them, are made outside of America.
Tariffed.
They're made.
Sorry.
They're made in like China and Finland.
That's a great
and the
question.
lock core is the essential part, right? It's the part that actually holds the lock together. You've got the lock body, which all it needs to be is just tough, right? It just needs to be a big block of metal.
Sure.
But the lock core is kind of the expensive, fancy part. So if those are made outside of the U.S., then the whole made in the USA designation is not true.
I was going to say, question on that, because what is made in the USA? If it's technically assembled in the USA, is that made in the USA? I mean, do you have to manufacture every component for it to be made in the USA? Help me out, legally speaking. What is made in USA?
Made in the USA without qualifications is actually fairly well defined. It's fairly specific. You have to manufacture nearly everything in the US. So you might, for instance, be able to get away with like we imported screws and that kind of thing. Okay. But all of the essential parts of it have to be made in the USA, assembled in the USA, from USA ingredients or, materials. So
I'm thinking like auto manufacturers have a ton of components and parts, etc., that are made elsewhere, and then the car ultimate assembly is here. Same thing with computer manufacturers, like Apple has a plant. I worked at Gateway, and they would assemble the computers here in Hampton, Virginia, but the parts would be from all over the place.
And you've got to actually check, because a lot of the time it'll say things that are, they'll hedge it. So, for instance, the iPhone will say that it's designed in California,
right?
But it's assembled and made in China, and it will actually specify that it is, made in China.
Similarly,
Packlock says assembled in the USA. which is
Okay.
correct. It's assembled in the USA, but they don't make the promise that they're not using components from elsewhere. You got to be really, really careful if you're doing it without any caveats.
Did you say they're made in China, or what was the other country that was the opposite of China?
Finland.
So they're either going with like child exploitation labor in China or human rights manufacturing in Finland.
The thing is that Finland is where Abloy is.
Okay.
And they're a very well-known sort of lock manufacturer.
I represented them. They had problems with locksmiths who would sell, who would buy counterfeit blank keys.
Oh yeah.
The only way you could make an Assa Abloy lock was to be a licensed Assa Abloy locksmith, but of course the locksmiths had a great incentive to buy generic blank keys. So I worked with them for several years on an enforcement project. They were kind of a weird client. They never really wanted to pull the trigger.
Ian is actually correct about the specific language that they use in advertising. Like Eric, you brought up the whole American cars, made in America for cars. They tend, if you think back to it, most of the time they'll say, buy American, which is not really the same thing as made in America. Buy American could simply mean from an American car company as opposed. So I think that they specifically, you don't often
BMWs are made here and they're a German car. Ironically.
Right.
So
Toyota, I got a Mercedes-Benz headquarters right up the street from my house. It's a giant corporate complex here in the Atlanta area. It's a German company.
Well, Atlanta's an interesting city because when I moved there in 2020 or so, I think they said that 400 there's representation of like 450 of the top 500 companies all have some headquarters in Atlanta of some kind. It's huge for corporate presence. But anyway, I was just as curious about the language and everything. I'm sure I'm not the only one, and I didn't know if it's like,
oh yeah,
if there's wiggle room in it. Like when you go buy meats. Okay, you have Prime, Choice, all these
Utility.
different names, and it's literally they all sound like they're great. Prime, Select, and Choice, I think, are the three types of meats as an example. And the good one is actually, I think, Prime. Choice is a little bit better, and then like Select is above canned meat on level or something like that. So I don't know if there was wiggle room in the terminology on what actually is made in the USA in terms of a legal term. That's where I was going. Ron, you shared this article here. What's this all about? We've got transgender pronoun policies.
This guy had a religious objection to calling trans students by their trans names. His religious belief was that if you're a boy, you're a boy. If you're a girl, you're a girl. And
right.
And he
sounds
made an agreement. So the school agreed to let him just call everybody by their last names, like a football coach.
Okay.
But
like everybody. Okay.
Everybody. So I mean, that's about as neutral as it gets. But then someone realized they weren't getting he was getting away with it. He was getting away with not genuflecting to the to the new reality. So they fired.
This sounds like C-16 and what put Jordan Peterson on the map. Compelled speech.
Oh.
So he was fired. He sued. District court said no. Oh, you were merely sued for not being polite and civil. And the Fifth Circuit, Judge Ho in the majority, God bless him, and it was 2-1. Said
there's a 1.
Said no. This is that's not going to cut it. And as Jane points out in the article that I sent you, because she had covered this story last year, so I have a little bit more familiarity with it than one might otherwise do. The legal issue was that he had, whether or not he had caused substantial student harm. Because if he had caused substantial student harm, regardless of his, even if it's his religious belief, there would be the school would still have a legitimate reason for firing him.
I'm sorry, Ron. I just need to stop for 1 second because this is I'm baffling.
Gosh darn it, will you
How did Viva get the camera to follow him everywhere?
He's got an Insta 360 webcam. Actually,
crap of a camera.
It's actually one of these, and it will follow you unless you turn motion tracking off.
I thought he'd put together a Viva Cam.
That's what it looked like. That was so cool.
Like Dave Letterman used to do. Remember?
I was like, oh my god, my camera would never do that.
Yeah, it's designed to do that, but not when you don't plan to have it do it. That's when it sucks, but it's for our entertainment.
Wow.
So Bill has one too, by the way.
God darn sons of bitch. That damn camera. You're now going to track.
You got to remember to turn the tracking off. Otherwise,
it's never been turned on. I don't even know what the hell happened.
You have to actually use the app, David. Download the app and then
it's the 360 link controller.
Yeah, here, let's go do this here now.
I'm sorry, Ron. Oh, sorry to interrupt you with our hijinks and camera.
I'm just glad he wasn't Jeffrey Tubin, because if the motion camera was
my god!
The only thing I'm worried about is whether or not there's a letter, like I'm going to dox myself and I've got my insurance papers out or something.
You know your life is bad when you're a verb. When your name is used as a verb,
tubining,
you've gone too far.
Yeah, but imagine a 360 camera for that guy. Oh my god.
Oh no, I'm not even worried. Like if the camera catches like dog piss, vomit, shit, whatever the hell I have on the floor.
Sorry, I'm just picturing a camera going up and down.
Did you get the dog? I got dog food here. Did we see the dog food on the table? Did we see the Louis the Lobster available? I guess
we created a new Viva ink. Yeah, that's.
Oh wow, David Freiheit is an author.
Yeah, and my wife put it together. She assembled it, and Abigail Martin is a daughter of our community member. She illustrated it. It's amazing. Hunley, did I see that you're wearing Viva Frei merch?
Oh yes, here we go.
Amazing.
Look at that.
Wow.
Amazing. Not only that, we're talking like historical merch here. This is like some of the earliest stuff that he did.
I feel guilty that I pulled this off topic when Ron was talking to us about this.
I know.
It's
shameful. It's shameful.
It's not shameful. It's fun. We're here to have fun. Maybe you learn something along the way, like we learned that Viva is not so bright.
I do think it's an interesting thing that he was even sued, and it's really because if
he's sued.
He's fired.
He was removed. I'm saying that there was this whole brouhaha over him. You're correct. Thank you for correcting me. He had to sue that he was fired for doing something like this, because the entire notion behind the name change and everything like that is purposefully designed to say, I find my validation since I don't have validation in reality, I need to have validation by having others pretend my reality is reality. So in other words, if I can help redefine reality by having compelling society at large to live within this redefined reality, that gives me an inner peace, that's why there's the massive stink there. They need the validation from others in order to actually find happiness.
Neutral is not good enough.
Right.
They need to hear.
Ron, these were kids, right? That he in respect of?
These were kids. He was speaking, so he's only using last names.
Because if I'm him, I raise the argument that I don't know if their parents would would find what I'm doing to be violative of their rights as parents.
But that wouldn't be he wouldn't be protected. If the school would have a policy, an F the parents policy, which is what these woke schools typically do, then he'd have a different problem. And it's a much harder fight that way. He wouldn't have standing necessarily to say, I wanted to respect the parents, because the school has a policy that we don't respect the parents. But he does have a religious right, unless his religious commitment. In other words, they have to accommodate him, unless doing so would impose an undue hardship on the school's mission. What's the mission? fostering a safe, inclusive learning environment for all. And the judge, the Court of Appeals said, there's no proof that that was your mission. That's something you just made up after the litigation started. The judge really just pulled it out of his hind regions, the district judge, in order to justify the firing. So it got sent back to the district court for proceedings consistent with the Fifth Circuit's opinion, and that's a pretty good opinion. And this guy's been, was fired already. This is a 2021 case.
Seems like an obvious opinion. I mean, to me, the shocking part is that there was one judge that disagreed.
Right.
I mean, it's the First Amendment going two directions, religion and speech, colliding. And that seemed like a fair compromise, just calling everybody by the last name where they have no identity other than their name. That seems fair.
And the law is actually, if you think about it, it's pretty logical. Imagine if someone did set up a school that was specifically designed for that objective of helping indulge and embrace the psychosis. So if they set up the school for that purpose, in that case, you can understand that anyone who decides to participate in the teaching role in that environment has to be acting in a manner that's consistent with what that objective and purpose is, in which case his failure to do that would make sense to fire him. Right. In other words,
well, it would be part of the contract. You got hired to do this job, and these are your expectations. And
precisely. Precisely.
Okay, yeah.
There's a contractual type of but even if it's not outlined specifically in the contract, even if it doesn't say it in the contract, you can understand that being read into the contract because that's the purpose and objective of the institution.
That would have to be a private school, though. But we're running into trouble if it's a public
right.
school.
Right. I agree with you.
You can't be doing that.
Right. Because a public school doesn't have that type of objective. Right.
Right. I don't think so. You
would hope. Oh my God! Please, God, never. That should our public schools should never have that kind of objective. But
public schools are a wreck, and so are a lot of private schools.
I don't doubt that. I just, I'm hoping that again that you can't dictate something like that in a public school. One would think. Now, in a private school, yeah, I guess so. If you're saying that this is a private, there's no public funds.
So then you have a different. Then the litigation posture is entirely different, and for a teacher, I think it's much harder for the teacher.
Yeah, I don't even know if free speech would come into it in a private school, because that's a membership type of thing or whatever, right? Like a club or something.
Yep.
All right. I'm going to jump to the next story. Phil shared this one. We have actually got a sheriff arrested.
A sanctuary sheriff.
Yeah, this is a.
Now, what is a sanctuary sheriff? Is he a sheriff or not?
Mafia. Well, no, he's up in Massachusetts, right? I guess Boston area, and or Suffolk County, wherever that is. And yeah, so when look, I don't want to get into a whole thing about whether we should or shouldn't legalize weed, but I think we can all agree that there are maybe certain problems created by the legalization. And one of these is that, you let these bureaucrats or sometimes law enforcement chiefs be sort of the gatekeepers of who gets to do business. And they tend to shake people down sometimes to do business in their cities. Right. And so this is just like blue mafia is what we call that. That's what this is. It's a federal indictment.
But that's not unique to cannabis. Many bars have been shaken down. Restaurants are shaken down by health inspectors.
Yeah, but it's kind of refreshing to see that some action is being taken against some of these. I don't know. I don't want to use the word that I'm thinking, but some of these folks that are just bad people that don't need to be at all in positions of power like that. We've got a lot of bad apples. There's nobody who's more pro law enforcement than me. I'm an ex-cop myself, but there's some bad apples, particularly in some of these big cities like this that are very bureaucratic in nature.
Sure.
And they get to the top through maybe things less than merit, shall we say, and then they tend to want to abuse their power.
Are you saying he's a DEI hire? No.
No, I got.
That's racist. That's racist.
I can't be. Yeah, that's right.
I'm going to start selling you a Sydney Sweeney type for too long.
You gonna sell me Sydney Sweeney? What?
I'm going to call you a Sydney Sweeney type.
Phil, did you? How long were you a cop for? I remember that.
Oh, well, let's see. I went to the academy in 1988, and I was a cop till I went to law school in 1993. And I'm currently an advisor to a sheriff's office that's got me deputized. So in that sense, I kind of.
And he's a pilot, and he's this, and
did
he's
you ever pull your gun?
For work or for fun? I mean,
for work.
Yeah, I've had to. Yeah, I did. I never had to shoot.
You ever shoot anybody for work?
No, I wanted to, but I'm teasing. I didn't want. No, nobody wants to do that.
I'm teasing also. You know, with the for work or for fun distinction.
Yeah. No, never had to. Fortunately, I'd had some colleagues that did, but no, I never had to actually fire it.
If I had to look at the six of us right here and had to guess who the former cop is, I think Phil would have been last on the list.
Really?
How about the former marijuana dealer?
Yeah, I would put Viva last on the list.
Who would have been first on the list, Ron?
Yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah, no, Ron has all the earmarks of a former cop. And
Really?
then you got I think probably Ian, then me, then that's the order I would have put it. Yeah. What? No.
Well, obviously, Florida man in the corner, you would not suspect.
That would have been the best.
Unless you talk about undercover.
He looks undercover.
He looks
like he looks like the guy who, like, you know, he plays like, you know, the low level junkie, right? You can't see him going undercover as the low level junkie who, like, you know, is going to bust the big ring.
Oh, either that or a wannabe a motorcycle gang member type, or that could be fun too.
Do we want to see what's
going?
Harley? You guys want to take a trip north of the border for some insanity?
Of course.
Hold on, let me get. Oh, it's so good. Okay,
you can take the boy out of Canada.
Let me take. Well, I mean, it's.
But you can't take.
Oh,
Canada out of the boy.
is this the forest that people can't walk into the forest or something?
Oh, how do I join chat? I can't post into the private chat here.
Sure.
Connect YouTube to join the chat. I'm not connecting.
No. Just go down to the private chat and then go to the studio chat.
Dude, I can't do that either. Go to.
Well, just share your screen, dude.
How do
I'll pull it up.
I can share my screen. Oh my gosh! Look at this.
Not the bad screen, okay?
Hold on.
I will check ahead to make sure it's not. No, I'm just
okay. I'm looking for Alex Zoltan, who put you got this one. Speaking of bad cops, and now you're bringing it up. Hunley, do you see it?
Here we go. Yeah, I will get it.
Okay. I don't know how this works because I've shared it. I see it on the bottom.
I get it. It just takes a second. I have to remove, unfortunately. So.
And now, do I get to control it? I get to control it.
Yes.
This is coming out of Winnipeg, I believe. We're not going to play the whole thing because it's 5 minutes. I'm going to talk about this today when I go live.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon,
I'm
everybody.
Pat
Volume up.
Sajak, and I'm a constable with the Winnipeg Police Service Public Information Office. We have one item to discuss.
Turn the volume
with
up,
you today.
please.
But before we do that, I would like to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 1 territory, the home and tradition lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu, Cree, and
He's doing a land recognition.
Oh my God.
If anybody can't, how low is it? It's always too loud on my end.
It's low. You know what? Just talk us through it.
It's an officer saying they're doing a press conference. They've only got one issue to discuss today, but first they want to do a land recognition.
No,
the issue that they had to discuss today were several of their officers engaging in drug dealing, drug use, photographing corpses, like criminality of the highest order. But they start the bloody press conference off by showing what a bunch of virtue signaling jackasses they are. It's insanity. That wasn't though the.
You know what I would like to see on that virtue signaling BS with the land acknowledgements or whatever they like to do. I would love to have somebody sit there and do the acknowledgement, and then, like you say, Lakota, and then you say like somebody else, and you say somebody else, because you're only talking about the most recent tribe who held possession of the land. What about every tribe prior to that? You know, what about the tribes they stole it from? It would be hilarious if somebody like went through the whole laundry list of, and before that, this one, and before that, this one.
It's like Isaac begat Jacob begat whomever. But
exactly,
I would like one of them white tyrants to give up their property to the unceded land. I mean,
I agree with that too.
Can I ask a stupid question?
Please.
All right. So I don't know, where did these whole, I know this is all, you know, woke BS stuff. Where did this land acknowledgement stuff even start? And secondly, Does anyone ever do it in the United States? I've only seen it in Canada when folks come to the microphone.
No. Go to universities here. They do it all the time in universities. And I think that's probably where it started in Canada too, is at universities.
If Native Americans don't recognize land ownership as a thing, then you can't steal their land.
Well, all I know is I was at the Atlanta Braves game the other day, and lots of the local Native American tribes were there cheering the Braves on.
Of course.
You know, they it's like everybody except the far left has like these issues that they just make up out of thin air.
Well, let's be honest, Bill. White people have to tell them what to be offended by. Okay,
well,
it has to be, middle-aged white women especially.
I was watching a recommendation from the Truth and Reconciliation Committee. It was one of the many recommendations they made. So
yeah, that explains it right in the last decade, because
that's where it comes from. Or at least that's where it started to take over. And you get them on, like, you go watch, like a theater production or something like that, and they'll start off with
it's absolute insanity. But that this cop gets up to, before he discloses the rampant criminality and corruption of their department, they've got a first virtue signal up their wazoo. Hunley, bring up the next one, because this one is related to the ban on hiking, fishing, and walking through the woods in Nova Scotia.
Okay, please help me with that, because that's Canada. So we've got two Canadians here. So defend your country.
There's no defending that. I mean, I don't think Runkle's going to defend that either. It's in Nova Scotia, so it's not in Alberta. They're having an allegedly a dry season, and Tim Houston, a man who used to work in Bermuda, was identified in the Paradise Papers, which was like the big disclosure of connections to offshore banking, but he, no malfeasance apparently. They have literally, I don't even know under what provision of law they do this, but forbidden access to public hiking trails for hiking, fishing, camping, using the outdoors in Nova Scotia because of forest fires. So it's insane. I've been covering it all week. But bring up the tweet from this guy.
This is also not super new. The rules allow for for banning people from areas over fire issues, and have for a long time.
Scroll over this guy's name. Oh, I scroll.
You have to do that too.
Ugh, me so stupid. Here, Roger Krusner, Canada senator from Nova Scotia. I swear to you, I thought this was parody before I replied to it. He wrote. Okay, so this guy Fred Delory works for CBC, state-funded media. Says no, respectfully disagree. A lot of people, I can tell you, it's Tinder. You blah blah blah. Stay out of the paths. This guy Roger Krusner, who's a senator, says, I was at a friend's place last night. His wife put out a cigarette in the fire pit before we went inside for dinner. 10 minutes later, we noticed the pit was in full blaze. Innocent enough, but incredibly dangerous. I support the Premier Houston's call on this 100%. I replied to like, so you're a law-breaking tard, and you think now Nova Scotians need to have their rights restricted because you're a law-breaking tard. And was that fire pit on fire first? Like this, it's ambiguous as to whether or not the fire pit was on fire, like they were using it. But the guy puts out, he's had a party. His friend's wife, always blame the wife, puts out a cigarette. And then he uses that as anecdotal evidence as to why banning people's access to public grounds that they pay taxes for is somehow justified.
I mean, the thing is that this is actually not new. They've been putting forest closures in like Alberta has provisions to allow for a forest closure. It's not done often, but they do have provisions for it. And, it's the highest level of the different tiers, because like they can go from like, no fire restriction to fire advisories, to fire restrictions, to fire bans. Right now, for much of Alberta, there's like fair chunks of it that have fire bans and off-highway vehicle restrictions, which is basically you can't.
Well, banning fire is one thing.
That's logical.
Banning people is another.
But banning
you can go up to a full forest closure, which does not allow any access to it for public safety reasons. And there's two reasons for that. One is they do have areas where they're like, we are concerned this is going to become a forest fire any minute. And we really don't want people in it, because if it's a forest fire, then suddenly it's a rescue thing. But second, people do break the rules. And this is why they say kick everybody out. And I think it's an extreme response. But you do get people who walked by and they're like, well, it's not a big deal if I smoke, and it's not a big deal if I, so the thing is you can argue about it, but this is not new. This is not something that's like unprecedented. This is something that just about every province has provisions for and has used in the past. So there's a lot of people sort of making it like this is something that's never happened before, and I don't think that's accurate. Whether or not it's justified in this particular circumstance, I don't know. I don't know how dry it is there, but
I flip it around. Whether or not it's ever happened before is irrelevant. It's absolute insanity. And, banning people, banning vehicles or off-road vehicles, that I can understand. There's combustion that goes on in the engines. What they're doing in Nova Scotia is obscene. It's exactly like what they did during COVID.
Yeah,
walking off streets.
You can't be surfing out in the ocean because of COVID. It sounds that way.
Oh,
well,
all
the thing is
restrictions.
What it's for is for things like, let's say you go up and there's, 20 people in a homeless camp. There's going to be fires there, but if there's no fire there right at that second.
But then the problem there is homelessness, not the fire ban is totally logical. No one would disagree with it. The vehicles, I don't think anybody would disagree with it. Combustion vehicles, bicycles, maybe not so much. But no, I don't want to start an exodus. I got to go do Rebel News, Ian. So I'm gonna.
Well, you are starting an exodus.
Yeah, you are.
I've got to go. I've got to go too. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Thanks for.
All right, guys, have a good one.
Cheers.
Yeah, well, that's fine. Next story is Ron's anyway.
All right,
so you
guys.
could talk
I'll see. I got to go.
His attorney for anti-Israel activists who blocked DC traffic cites fictitious case in motion to dismiss. Is this another AI?
Yep.
Oh my. By the way, okay, while we're talking about AI, and we'll jump back into this, what do you guys think about the use of AI for, there's a couple cases now. First, there's the Acosta interview where he interviewed, which I thought was just disgusting. But there was another case too where they had a victim impact statement of the victim who was AI, who delivered a statement in the sentence.
Should have been completely forbidden. And the only reason it wasn't is because the defense didn't object to it, because the statement from the AI was basically, please forgive everybody. And so the defense is like, okay, sure. But the thing is, if I was the judge, I would have been like, I don't care if the defense is consenting to it. This is made up. This is bullshit. And it might be made up based on you fed it, this person's prior writings and so forth. It's still made up. It has no value to it. And I mean, there are uses for AI in legal drafting, but I would say that any lawyer who signs their name to a legally drafted thing and it's shown that they have a hallucinated citation in there, if it was Judge Runkle, I would say the starting point on that is $25,000. You walk in, you bring into my courtroom a fake, citation, it's $25,000. And that's the
Ian,
starting
you got to
point.
explain to non-lawyers, it's not just because you're a nasty bastard. There's so many things about it that are corrupt.
Yeah.
It tells us that you as a lawyer didn't even bother to read the brief and have someone in your office. By the way, I mean, even AI can even check whether the sites in a brief are good. Okay.
Yeah.
You didn't bother to see if which means that even the briefs that you have had in the past had written in all probability by third parties, or that you just cut and pasted from other lawyers' briefs, because a lot of the issues come up over and over again. I cut and paste stuff. I culminate it, but
yeah,
there are certain blocks, and you can look. There are certain blocks of text that you can see judges copying and pasting from each other all the time. And that's why these cases keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. But you're telling us you've never really given a shit what's in those briefs. And the fact that it's the only thing that's new is that you are using a computer that did something that even your most unqualified summer intern wouldn't do, which is to make up case citations.
It's just completely sloppy. It just says you never even bothered to, because I can tell you when I get a filing from the other side, I go and check every citation, every single citation, to make sure that it is what they say it is. And this tells me that this lawyer isn't doing that, that
So
they're not
there's
doing
only-
it for their own material, they're not doing it for the other side's materials,
Only
that
one
they are
thing could-
just
Ian,
a
only one
garbage
thing could
lawyer.
only one thing could be worse, and that's. Oh, I guess oh yeah, it's on. Can you see it on the screen?
Nope. Nope.
No, because I guess I don't have Eric's permission. When a judge does it,
Yes. Oh, I would say that when a judge does it, it should be an immediate trigger of A, review of every case that they presided on, and B, a referral to should you still be a judge.
I mean, so this came up on August 1st. And I'm sure when Eric gets back, hi, Eric.
Yes, sir.
I need either sharing permission or if you could put up the
Just share
link.
your screen. That's easy enough. I'll put it up if you want.
Thanks. Try it again. Did federal judge use AI to write order? The state attorney general has asked a federal judge in Mississippi to explain errors in a recent ruling, which some lawyers speculated were made by artificial intelligence. U.S. District Judge Henry T. Wingate issued a TRO pausing the enforcement of a state law that prohibits DEI in public schools. But the order was riddled with mistakes, naming plaintiffs who weren't parties to the suit, quoting state law incorrectly. Hi, Judge. How you doing? Mind-boggling. I mean, how much worse can it get than that? And I understand that this is one of those last-minute Biden judges that was part of that deal that Biden made before leaving office.
I mean, I suspect we're going to see more and more of this coming out as a problem. You're getting students who think that AI is a great shortcut to not doing their assignments and so forth. You get, but it's awful. And I mean, when I say 25 grand, I'd be like, hey, listen, we're going to award solicitor and own client costs for for the other side sorting out this, payable by the lawyers personally, because it's not the client's fault. And we're going to put a floor on it. Like the minimum on this will be 25 grand or what they spent sorting this out, whichever's higher. And it'll just be that, because right now there's a tremendous financial incentive with the, we're seeing a lot of sanctions orders that are in the $1,000 range. And I'm like, that's a couple hours of a lawyer's time. So we're not actually saying to these lawyers that it's not worth it to do this. What we're saying is go ahead, just try to get caught as little as possible. I would be saying, nah, if I caught you, it's
if your lawyer, screws up or whatever, could that be ineffective counsel or does the client have any means to go after the lawyer for using AI?
That's malpractice per se.
Yeah.
Per se.
Oh, okay. I was wondering about that.
Yeah, no, that's
okay.
Yeah, it's unreal how much of it is happening, and just really bizarre.
Can we point out one irony about AI, or what we see as AI right now? Remember, we're supposed to have artificial intelligence and robots and stuff to take care of all of our dirty grunge work and things that we hate doing and leave us time to go make art. But what we have is AI making the art and we're still doing all the grunge work.
The thing is that the AI gets aimed at the stuff that costs companies money. And so it doesn't get aimed at things like, doing your dishes because, I mean, it might get aimed at like doing a restaurant's dishes, but it's not going to be aimed at like doing your dishes because there just isn't that much money in that. So it's mostly aimed at things like, like companies don't like spending money on art. They don't like spending money on lawyers, especially because artists and lawyers both come into the category of like, we tend to do what we think is best and not what like the company thinks is best. So the company will be like, okay, we've hired an artist, and the artist will produce a piece of art.
Mhm.
And they're like, well, I want it to be more, black or whatever, like more whatever, darker, brighter, whatever. And the artist is like, yeah, that's not what I did though. And it's not what I'm going to do because it's not my vision. And companies hate that. They want to be able to just be like, same thing, only darker.
Sure.
They don't want, and they really hate lawyers because lawyers do things like they're like, hey, I have this great business model. And the lawyer says, yeah, that's a Ponzi scheme. That's illegal. And you can't do it.
Well, then they
And
have
they're
to
like-
hate accountants as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And they're coming for accountants 100%. Like, this is like, if you think accountants aren't on their. But yeah, I mean, they love the idea of AI because you can, like, all of these AI things, if you ask the question a little differently, it'll spit out a completely different answer. And especially when you ask, like, leading questions, like, tell me what law allows me to do X. And most of the AIs will spit out something that sounds persuasive, but, isn't. So, it's also a huge problem that we see in Canada because in Canada, like, there's lawyers who want to use the AI things and they pull things off of the internet. Well, the internet is like 50% American. And so when they pull legal issues off of the internet, what they pull is a lot of US law.
Well, that's garbage in, garbage out. Now, a question on that, because I fail to understand why LexisNexis or whoever you're dealing with would not sandbox to where, a lot of the problems you have with AI is, first off, what do you feed in it? So now if you put in like all legal case decisions in history that it can find, but that's all the information it has, you're going to have a much cleaner result, are you not? Because you're saying, hey, we're only putting in decisions, but we're not putting in, any connection to the internet or anything outside of that.
The problem is, even there, you put in all sorts of garbage, right? Because it's like, okay, you're putting in every decision. Well, that includes the decisions that have been reversed. And so it can spit out correctly a position from a court case that is not good law. Like, I have seen AI citations cite to real cases. And the real case that I saw was it cited to Dred Scott. Now, Dred Scott, citing to Dred Scott is a great way to not only lose your argument in a hurry, but also get yelled at by the judge, because it's considered like one of the Supreme Court's greatest blunders in the US. And it hasn't been explicitly overturned, mostly because nobody's ever thought that they had to, because the sort of consensus is that it's a ridiculous decision. So if your AI sees that Dred Scott is out there as a US Supreme Court decision and quotes from it, it is actually setting you up to get discipline, as a lawyer.
Well, I mean,
because
that's still not necessarily a bad thing, because wouldn't a junior associate go find the Dred Scott decision and say, hey, look, boss, I found it. What is the difference? No, I know.
Conscious in law school.
But you know what I'm saying? But you're saying AI is just a moron in the sense that it's just going to pull up whatever is there, garbage in, garbage out. But that's what you're supposed to do: discern the results.
If I hired an associate, like if I was a US lawyer and I hired an associate, and the associate brought me legal writing that included Dred Scott as a serious citation, I would immediately, like, if this was their first ever screw up, it would be like, we're having a talk about this and everything you do is getting reviewed from now on much more carefully. And if this wasn't their first screw up, I would just be like, go home. We'll mail you your shit in a box. Like, immediately shut down everything you're doing. Do not finish whatever. Just go home. Because it's that kind of screw up, and AI will do it all the time.
But that's
right?
my issue, is that if you're using the AI, it's the same as using that moron associate. Is it not? It's ultimately up to you and the lawyer to take whatever is presented to you and say, oh yeah, no, not that one. Oh yeah, to dig that extra layer or whatever else. I still think the sandboxing is far superior than having an open internet connection that pulls all of Reddit and everything else out there.
Well, I mean, if you use AI, if you use AI through Westlaw or Lexis,
right,
which I do as a tool, I think Lexis won't let you just copy and paste. It doesn't give you the sites in citation format. It gives you links, and then you're on your own to go.
Which is good, right?
Very good. But also the point is the AI is not so stupidly designed that it's going to give you Dred Scott. If it does, then I want all my money back.
The other thing you've got to do is you've got to check it, because like Canley, which is sort of a Canadian thing, has an AI summaries feature. And right. I have seen the AI summaries get cases dead backwards. There was one case that it noted, and it said the judge did not cite any mitigating factors. And like half of the decision actually is going through mitigating factors on the sentencing. And so I'm like, you still got to read it. You still got to check its work.
Yeah, 100%,
it might,
absolutely. Yeah.
But it can be really useful for here are a bunch of cases you should read to
right.
winnow down the field.
Right.
And it can be really good for things like, here is a list of 20 things. Can you please format this nicely as bullet points? Do not edit the text, just format it. And it can do that stuff really well, which might otherwise take you, might take you a while, right?
So it's kind of like Wikipedia, okay? You don't cite Wikipedia as your source, but you can go to a Wikipedia article and then find the articles that are footnotes that are creating the article, and then go chase down all of those and then chase down their sources. So there is a value in that regard, right?
Yep. It's not useless. It's just
no, it's a very good tool, but it's not a replacement for practicing law.
Well, and you know what I'm wondering, and I'm curious your guys' thought on this. Maybe that's what needs to be taught in schools now, is how the proper way to utilize these tools. Not just say, no ChatGPT, or we're banning you from filling the blank, but to train people on how they work, how they can be utilized, how to use this tool to dig deeper, blah, 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 blah,
right, but
live within that realm.
The problem is, Eric, that 98% of the lawyers graduated law school already.
Sure.
AI is now. When I was in law school, when I graduated in 1988, I was first learning legal research and writing, which was in the fall of 1985.
Mm-hmm.
Westlaw and Lexis were there, but it was a very, very different world. It wasn't web-based. There was no World Wide Web, but we were not allowed anywhere near it until we learned how to use what were called the decennial digest and the key system, and manual shepherdizing. And for us old folk, when we do online research, we do understand the guts of what we're doing, but I don't think they even teach that anymore. It's just so it's they should teach the concepts, and I imagine that they do, but this is.
Well, don't you have CLEs or anything like that too?
Yeah, I foresee that becoming a mandatory CLE topic. So you do have to in most states, including the ones where I'm admitted, there's an ethics component to your CLE requirements, and that's going to have to be covered by the ethics components, I'm sure. Guys, I'm going to have to bail now that Joe's
right
here.
On time. Joe's here to kick you out. Get out.
We're pretty much interchangeable anyway. All right, guys. See you later. Have a
No,
good
no
one.
one can tell us apart.
There you go.
See ya.
Well, we've
Have
got
a good weekend,
the
guys.
hair.
Travis.
The hair side has half disappeared, so we're back to the no hair side here, crowding out the luscious locks from up north. Now, okay, Ian, this super chat came in. Don't get a whole lot of these. Sounding familiar, or something you guys probably covered. I can think of more than a dozen corrupt law enforcement in Massachusetts that should be arrested. This guy is a Boy Scout comparatively. I think that's the sheriff, sanctuary sheriff.
Yeah, I think she was.
Yeah.
That came up then.
She's referring to the Karen Reed, trial, because the Karen Reed trial is, it's bizarre, the stuff that keeps coming out on that one.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, is there still stuff going? Because I keep seeing Karen Reed trending from time to time, and I'm like, well, I thought her stuff is done.
So there's still the civil case ongoing, which is going to be interesting. But there's also like corollary stuff, like Lally is was being cross-examined with respect to late disclosure in a different case. And his answers were just shocking. And there's the Birchmore case.
Yeah, somebody said, and Sandra Birchmore. Now, what is this?
So Sandra Birchmore is freaking horrific because basically this police officer who was assigned to work with like at-risk youth forms a it's going to sound like we're being kind of offensive, but we have to tiptoe around things because of YouTube.
Please.
So forms a relationship with one of the girls there. And she becomes pregnant, and then later, is, the official report is that she ends her own life, which is not what later is determined. Now this officer has been charged with, murdering
helping her in her life.
with murder, because it's a whole like bizarre thing there. And all of the officers that are like from the Karen Reed case, there's overlap, including like, the officer who did the technical download, who also like, who missed a bunch of things in the Birchmore case that would have clearly been like implicating this police officer. It's bizarre, right? So, I just wonder what's going on in Massachusetts. I kind of think that they need to fire like every DA and every police officer and just like hire new people out of Walmart. Like just walk into the Walmart and be like, with the little electric wheelchair and the giant tub of peanut butter. Like you're now a police officer. You can't do any worse.
Fair enough. Well, you can also, federalize it or something like that, or have the state moved in. I believe New Jersey, Joe, you might know this. Wasn't there a town that got federalized for the police, or where the police got shut down, the state took over or something? I thought there was a New Jersey city that happened.
I don't remember hearing about that. I'm actually reading up on this story, the Sarah Birchmore story. This is horrific. This if these allegations are true, which I'm only learning of it now, so I have as much knowledge as anyone else. I mean, these allegations about this Matthew Farwell literally destroyed a young girl's life from the time she was 15 till she ends up becoming pregnant, and then doing her in and trying to deny her any sort of justice. My God, this guy's a monster. Wow.
Well, I mean, it kind of starts with having the relationship to begin with. Everything just spins out of that monstrous act.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why would he stop, at one point when he's already just soiled somebody's life or whatever?
Wow.
Horrible. Okay. Well,
yeah.
That happy, no, not. What other case are we trying to think of what popped in my head?
I've been talking all this week about the situation with the Texas redistricting fight, and Trump's claim yesterday that he wants to try and implement the census. Yes. Yeah.
That's interesting. I don't know. Is there a law? There is a law. I mean, it's written in that there has to be a census every 10 years, but is there anything saying it can't be a second one in 5 years?
Now, that's a fair question to ask, I think. But then you can ask, so wait, is this going to count for the 2030 census? Because if you're talking to, there's a lot of different elements to this ongoing fight, and this is ultimately a fight over how many House seats we have.
Of course it is. Yeah,
that's what this with respect to the census, with respect to the redistricting in Texas, with respect to the gerrymandering that we've seen in other states, and the left screaming that they're going to go nuts. They're going to go nuts, right. And the claims that the left is making that they're going to retaliate are silly, in the sense that Trump is correct. They're going to do whatever they're going to do. They've already been doing whatever they can do. To think that if a Republican state now is going to gerrymander, and it is purposefully designed to try and get more Republican seats in the House, particularly for this next term, is kind of ridiculous. It's kind of a ridiculous complaint, because they have been doing it left and right. The governor of Massachusetts, Mauro Healey, was threatening that if Texas, you push to this brink, if you're going to do this, then we're going to do this also. Well, you already. What do you mean you're going to do it? You got 9 seats in Massachusetts, and they're already all Democrats. It's like, what are you going to gerrymander to make things worse? You've made it as bad as possible. That's why Texas is doing this. But
aren't there arguments, though, that gerrymandering technically is what people are voting for? Like in the sense of, if one party or the other wins out the majority, the districting is kind of part of the spoils. I mean, I'm not saying I necessarily like it, but it has been argued that the people put in charge are, the state legislature can start to say, well,
to effectively disenfranchise as many of your opponents as possible. Like, that's not how the political system should work.
So we should talk a little bit about the 1965 Voting Rights Act and the impact it's had on disenfranchisement and basically creating seats for Democrats. Because the 1965 Voting Rights Act was in Section 2 thereof. It basically put a restriction saying you cannot create jurisdictions, districts, for the purposes of trying to deprive a majority of minorities from having representation. And that sounds very confusing. And I played a clip of Harmeet Dillon talking about this, where basically, in case you're unaware of this, the idea was, let's say you have an area that has a majority of the people living in that area are minority. Black, Hispanic, Asian, Jewish, doesn't matter. But there's majority of the people in this area are a particular minority. So, during the racist periods that, coming into the 50s and 60s, so what they could possibly do in that area is they would dice them up into pieces and say, okay, so this section of you are in that district, that section is another district, and in another district, in order to deprive them of having any sort of representation, because they'll be the minority. Instead of being the majority, they'll now be the minority. So under the Voting Rights Act of 1965, they said that if you have an area like that, you have to create a special district, which is considered, and it's called a special majority district, which is designed to say, because the minorities here are the majority of the people living here, that they have a special majority district. Well, and that started expanding out, where they said, we don't really have them in this normal looking district, so let's stretch it out like 200 miles and say in this 200-mile district, there's a majority, we have a special district that they have to be like that. Then they went even further and they said, okay, we don't really have a majority of Black people, but we got 30% Black people and 35% Hispanic people. So let's now take these two different minorities and say they tend to vote the same way, and they live in the same county on 30 miles from each other. But let's throw them into the same special district and make a coalition of minorities to now create a majority. Then now once we draw it up this way, now we draw it up this way, so now they are the majority in this district. So that notion was actually, that was a law that was case law.
You get things like this.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think that's created by that. You're talking about that yellow snake across there that is in Illinois.
Right. Where they literally.
What the F is that? What the F is that? Right. Exactly.
Right, it splits the other district around it. I mean, it's literally cut right through the middle, and that's I'm
getting to the key part of the law that changed in 2024, which became the genesis of this whole fight now. So there was this notion based on a case law that goes back to I think the 70s or 80s, which basically said that you can create a coalition of different minorities and then use them together to call them the majority in the area and form a special district. Well, in 2024, the Fifth Circuit overruled that. That was a Fifth Circuit decision, and they overruled that decision. And they said no longer can you say we're going to take blacks and Hispanics and merge them together, or Asians and blacks and whatever, merge them together and say because they vote the same way, now they're entitled to have this special district. Well, and they said that's crap. The Voting Rights Act doesn't say you're supposed to do that. It specifically says one class of people, not classes of people, that's who's designed to protect. That's never supposed to happen. And there's no such thing as a coalition of different minorities to form this majority. So that's gone. That happened in like January of 2024. So Harmeet Dillon sent a letter to Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, saying you have multiple districts in case law came out last year. You have multiple districts in your state, which are special minority districts that are no longer supposed to be qualified as special majority districts. They're no longer supposed to be qualified that way because they're not, because they only got there through a coalition, and the Fifth Circuit doesn't recognize coalitions anymore. So you need to redraw your maps. So he called a special session of Congress. They put together their maps and they said, once we're redrawing this, let's try to do it in a way that's going to best enable Republicans to get seats in the next election. And that's what led to the Democrats marching off and running away to Illinois, and Pritzker saying, I'll be your sanctuary state. And he can protect them.
By the way, Joe, it's not like this is new. The Texas Democrats have left the state multiple times, most recently in 2022. And I thought it was 22, but whatever. And they were gone for 136 days, I believe. And they did it, I think, in the 70s. Anyway, they have a habit of doing this, and now the threat is, and I think it's an interesting idea, can they be removed from their seat? Because they have one job, and that's to show up and vote. And if they vote for it or against it, and if you're not able to perform your job, then should they be removed?
My research on Texas law indicates that there's, at least according to Ken Paxton and the statutes I've looked at, is that they can begin what's called a quo warranto proceeding, basically saying that you've abandoned, but they have to go to court and get a court to basically look each individual case and say, and go against this individual, that individual, all 50 of them, and say this person, the actions they've taken, given the entire set of circumstances, shows abandonment, and they should be declared that their seat has now been abandoned and can be replaced. But that's a relatively lengthy process. It's possible that the threat of losing their seats by commencing a quo warranto, I was going to say,
but it only takes one.
Come running back.
They know they're under threat.
Yes. If they see the sword of Damocles hanging over their head and the cord getting cut, starting to get sliced at, I think that they will all come flying right back. This was all inspired by Hakeem Jeffries. He went down to Texas and basically said, I want you guys to march out, because otherwise they're going to get, if you stay here and there's a quorum, we're going to have problems in the next election.
But they're still going to get it. This is the obnoxious part of it, is that ultimately they're going to have to either live away from Texas forever, and you might as well start those proceedings, or they're going to get the quorum. It only takes one Democrat to show up and they get a quorum and they're done.
Right.
Here's somebody here. And so they're just delaying things and causing a spectacle. And I think they're just being annoying. But
the delay is, perhaps, if you're a Democrat, okay, if you're a Democrat strategist, the delay seems like it's just an annoying thing, but it could be beneficial as far as helping them for 2026, because even if they get dragged in there, instead of being dragged in August, they end up getting dragged in there in September October. Well, then now you have to pass legislation for, now they'll pass the legislation and say, here's the new map. But once they pass the legislation for new map, there's going to be all sorts of court litigation to try and say, because they're going to say this map is racist and this map is designed to harm these various minorities. And that's going to have to be processed through the court system. And if in fact it gets processed through this court system and they can get a TRO into effect, or preliminary injunction, to stop these maps from taking effect, while this case is pending. In that case, the more they stall now, the less lengthier time they need to stall in court when they're ultimately litigating to try and say that these new maps should not be are illegal. So it's really a matter of they're trying to work out the clock and enable themselves, position themselves to have the best chance of stopping these maps from coming into effect for the 2026 election.
Okay, interesting idea. Let me get these quick two super chats here from Corn Pop. Makes me think Joe Biden had that guy Corn Pop. He was a mean dude.
He was a mean dude.
What are our rules on blocking people? Okay, I'm pretty mellow, but my basic general rule of thumb, and I mute people. I try not to block them. If somebody's getting annoying, mute it for 5 minutes or the entire chat or whatever it is. I don't like banning people permanently if possible, but attack ideas, don't attack people. It's pretty easy. You could say what Joe is saying is wrong or incorrect or horrible, and I can't believe it, but you don't attack Joe himself. That's it. And same thing with other members of the chat. Just attack ideas, not each other personally.
I think the rule is only for Joe.
It should be.
Only for Joe, absolutely. And then Cornbread says, I need somebody blocked. Well, that's the second thing. If somebody is annoying you, you can actually block them yourself and not have to see them any longer.
I'm the puppet master. I'm controlling this, pulling the strings behind. That's what Eric's trying to tell everyone. That's Joe. Somehow he's that
dug into things.
Joe. It's that Joe who's using his money to influence how this thing goes. So
yes. That's exactly it. You caught me. But okay, on that note, to wrap that up, and Mark Pugner, good. There you go. No ad hominem attacks. Exactly. It's not complicated. A robust debate is fun. Nate, often brings it when he's here, and the chat will be on there. But it's an easy solution. So, Ian, what do you have coming up?
I've been following a bit on the SIG P220 or P320 stuff. I'm actually trying to get a hold of a P320 to do some additional sort of testing. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but basically the allegations.
It's a pistol.
It's a pistol, and it's been alleged to be the most efficient pistol on the market in terms of number of rounds fired per trigger pull.
Okay.
And that it's been alleged to go off, on its own without any help. So there's a bunch of people suing because they've, in one guy's case, he lost his lawsuit, but he sued after it blew his, south of the border. So,
the Franks and the beans.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess the Franken beans.
I hate it when that happens.
Oh, yeah, it's the worst.
Yeah.
So, now there's questions as to whether or not the P320 is actually a bad gun or not, but it's got that reputation, and I think in terms of the legal footing that they're on, they're in a pretty rough spot. I think they're going to start eating some judgments they don't want to eat. So, I
heard it's a good gun. I heard it's a good gun if you have the cojones to use it.
You do need some steel balls for that one.
So you're saying it's a women's gun? Better for women?
I said you need the cojones to use it. Yeah,
I got it. All right. We're cheering on that. Joe, what do you have coming up?
I'm developing my skills as a video editor. That's basically because I want to start producing content like standalone VOD kind of content. And I actually am determined to basically become a better video editor than the entire legal eagle team, because I have to admit that while I think his legal conclusions are relatively sus, I think that his video work is awesome. And in order to, you need to fight fire with fire. And I've spent the last several weeks working on my video editing skills.
What tool are you using? Resolve or
Adobe Premiere Pro. So, and I'm becoming really proficient at this because I want to basically start producing content, and I'm getting faster and faster as this process is happening.
Sure.
Like the first minute or 2 minutes of video literally took me like a week and a half to like really do it proper. And like, you know, and over the last week, I've done like another 6 minutes of video. So, but it's like a 15-minute video I'm working on about a topic that we were arguing about just last week, which was the 2 weeks ago when we were here, about whether or not Obama has immunity from these charges if they were ever brought against them. So I feel like that's going to remain a timely issue for a while. So that's why I have some time to actually get this done.
Good idea.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, coming up for me, America's Untold Stories, Freeform Friday at 5:30. Also, I don't know if people have noticed, but on my original channel, this actually spun out of my original channel. I've been putting up interviews, both Monday, pulling from the vault, older interviews people haven't seen for a long time, etc. And then every Thursday, a new interview. Yesterday, did an interview on Danny Rolling, who some people have pointed out Brian Koberger could be a copycat of Danny Rolling. He's also known as the Gainesville Ripper. So if you guys like,
oh man, that would piss Koberger off if that got traction.
Well, it may well, but you know there are some real parallels there. The Gainesville Ripper, we're talking about a college town, Gainesville, Florida. You're talking about Idaho, same thing. Apartment right next to the campus. Multiple people inside. Very relevant. Killed with a K-bar knife. So you have the same murder weapons.
Really common.
It might be, but you also have the same trend of the like a frenzy, attack in there. Danny Rolling. One other thing that's interesting too is he brought dish soap, and he would clean up, on their person. Kind of similar to, remember in the sentencing, they were talking about a vacuum that Koberger may have brought or something to clean up. There was a lot of things that never really got revealed. I guess there are crime scene photos coming out now, and hopefully all the case will be ultimately revealed and we can get more information, because it seems like that gag order and everything, they had a lot of stuff suppressed. But anyway, there's some very interesting parallels between that case. People want to check that out, have an interview there, and other true crime stuff. So want to plug that. And
you guys check it out. He's awesome. Eric's awesome. Check it out.
Oh, thank you.
Make sure you like and sub.
And you know what? There's something you really could do while you're here. It's free. You can subscribe right here. If you like seeing these panels.
It's about the only thing you're going to get from a lawyer for free.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I can't say that it's every Friday, but I try to get it as many Fridays as I can. So it's most Fridays.
I will attest that when there's no, everyone should know when we don't have layback law, it's invariably because there's just a lack of attorneys who are available because of our own busy schedules. So it's not that it's Eric's reluctance. It's a matter of I see people basically checking out and checking in his chat there, and so on those weeks he has like 1 or 2 people maximum, and he's like, all right, let's just kill it. In fact, last week he put one together, and I was last minute when I sort of dogged him on it, and then I didn't realize that he ended up putting a show up, and I felt terrible that I missed it. So I apologize to you publicly for that, because I inspired him to do a show that I'd be there, and then didn't even know that was happening.
It's okay. I thought that the show wasn't going to go through, and then at the last second, somebody came in.
Good.
And I was like, oh, okay.
Good.
Well, and there was actually a joke. I think you said I was an anti-Semite or something.
Yeah. No, because what happened was the only 2 people who checked in were me and Ron. And
right.
Eric's like, well, I guess we don't have a show. So I just responded to one word, like anti-Semite.
Yeah, but here's the funny part that you'll love, Joe.
Yeah.
The show came on anyway because I found another Jew.
Really? Who was
David
that?
agreed.
Oh, nice.
Viva.
Nice.
So I was like, so after you said that, I was like, oh, show can go on. I found another Jew.
There you go. There you
So
go.
anyway, everybody, thank you so much. If you like this kind of thing, please consider subscribing and hope to see you in the next video.
Godspeed.